Okay, looks like we're all accounted for. I'd like to reconvene from closed session, and we have some items to report. Number one, by unanimous vote, the board took action in closed session to approve a resignation agreement and release of all claims regarding employee number 00158492 effective March 9, 2020. Item 2, in closed session this afternoon, Superintendent Brent Calvin indicated that one of the grants funding the TRIO Upward Bound grant is ending August 31 of 2020. In anticipation of this grant ending, Mr. Calvin recommended to the Board of Trustees that the TRIO Upward Bound grant be released from his director, be released from his appointment as an educational administrator effective at the end of business day on June 30, 2020. Mr. Calvin further advised, however, that the district still intends to employ the director of the TRIO Upward Bound grant for the 2021 year at a minimum of 50%, but indicated that the district would be bringing details of his employment arrangement at a future board meeting. Mr. Calvin concluded by noting the district has applied for an extension of the expiring grant, but will not find out the results of its request until July of 2020. If this grant is extended, the director of the TRIO Upward Bound grant will be reemployed at 100% during the 2021 fiscal year. Based upon Mr. Calvin's recommendation, the board had a roll call vote, and the results were 5-0 in favor of releasing the director of the TRIO grant Upward Bound from his appointment as an educational administrator effective at the end of business day, June 30, 2020. Ooh, that was a mouthful. Also, by unanimous vote, the board took action in closed session to adopt resolution 2020-02 to not reemploy employee number 0003-640 effective for the 2021 academic year. Additionally, the board directed Superintendent President Calvin or his designee to send out appropriate legal notice to the affected employee. Okay. Thank you for bearing with me on that. And at this time, I would like to ask you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which I would ask our student trustee, Ray, to please lead us.
Ready, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Public comment. Per board policy 2350, any person may address the board at this time either on an agenda item or other matters of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker with a maximum time of 15 minutes per item unless otherwise extended by the board. So with that, do we have any comments this afternoon on items that are on the agenda? Okay, none. Do we have public comments today concerning items that are not on the agenda? Okay, none as well. First up, I will ask our student trustee Ray to give us her report, please.
Yeah, so since we last met, Student Senate had a basketball tailgate. We gave out free hot dogs and chips to students, and some people bought some or even gave out donations, which was really nice of them. We also hosted a region meeting on February 28th. It was really cool, it was fun. And then we had a talent show last Thursday, and despite some technical difficulties, it was also a success. We've also been discussing district-wide involvement. We've been thinking of ideas of maybe hosting events at the other campuses, and we've been collaborating with Ad Council and Hanford and kind of getting their input and seeing what they would like us to maybe do. And then we're gonna have a St. Patrick's Day event, March 17th, so next Tuesday. And we also voted on increasing the stipends for the executive board. So right now, it's already $200 for the president, but we voted on it becoming equal for the entire board. And the reason why we did that is because we started requiring office hours for all of the boards. So each board member is required to hold office hours, and that way we're available for students to come and speak to us anytime they need to. And we also wanted to have it as an incentive for elections, which will be coming up in April. Most of the board is going to be graduating, so you should be seeing fresh faces soon. And then another thing that came to our attention is AB 2910, which is about student trustees having advisory vote as well as a stipend. Of course, COS already does this, but this AB is making it to where all boards across the state would have that. They are asking for support from local boards, but I just wanted to bring it to your guys' attention and maybe see what you guys think. And then lastly, I had the pleasure of attending ProCon this last Friday, and I just wanted to say thank you guys for giving us that opportunity. My friends and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you so much. And that's it for me.
Okay.
I'm glad you're not asking us to do office hours.
Ray, have you decided where you're transferring to?
No, I got accepted to a few, but I haven't made my decision yet. But
Well, we'll be waiting to hear.
You can always stay here.
Okay, so I must say I agree with your decision regarding the stipend. I don't think the president should ever get special privileges,
yeah, we like the idea of it
no
being
matter
equal too.
president of what. Okay, board member reports, starting with Mr. Sherman.
None.
I actually just wanted to publicly share my appreciation for Superintendent Calvin, administration, and Puente for hosting the Cesar Chavez event that's going to be on March 28th here on campus. It's an event that I've been close to for about 10 years, and I was really happy to see COS have a greater role in having that celebration. I imagine that there are students that are students during the week, and then on the weekends they're farm workers. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some students that are farm workers during the day and students at night. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to acknowledge a leader of helping farm workers, as well as celebrating them with a march and then a celebration here at COS. I just wanted to say thank you publicly.
Do you want to tell how we've kind of flipped? It used to start
Yeah.
here
Yeah,
and then finish at Manuel Hernandez Center.
Yeah, COS has been a longtime partner where community members from throughout the county have started their march here. They did a blessing, and then they would march from here to Redwood High School, and then from Redwood High School to, I'm not sure if it's a community park where CSET is. There's a specific name I can't remember at the moment. Whitman Community Center as well. This year it's actually going to flip, where they're going to start at Whitman Community Center, walk through North Visalia, Redwood, and then end here, and then in our quad area they're going to have a celebration, live entertainment, different keynote speakers, representatives from throughout the state. So it's going to be an exciting time, and I appreciate COS getting involved.
All right, very good.
I was able to attend a board meeting, board member training, more generic to just board membership. Probably focused more on community-based organizations, but you know, there's always a little something you pick up. I am pleased to say, as we have repeated from this dais for many times, that almost without regard to where we go, we find ourselves in that minority of boards that are effective, I believe, and get along and are civil, where some of those other stories aren't very pleasing. They're probably the best thing that I pulled from that is a resource website, and I'll continue to look at that, see if there's anything that may be of value as we continue to try to improve.
Okay.
I attended the Tulare Joint Union High School Board meeting to listen to Mr. Calvin's presentation. We were the only two extras in the room, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But it was a great presentation, and I actually heard from a few administrators that were there that night. It it was a room full of sadness because of the administrator that they lost this past week. And one of their counselors, she was the fiance of one of the firefighters. So the room had a heavy heart, and Brent, you did fine, but that was a tough crowd that night. It was very somber, but rightfully so. But the ones that were there appreciated the feedback. I think COS is definitely on the counselor's radar now, so good job to all of you that do all that work, because they're finding such value. And a few questions came up about if it's free, and actually a question came up that night. Someone called me and said, we heard free, does it mean if they go to Fresno State and they don't make it and they come back home, it's still free? And I didn't know that answer. She had a daughter or a granddaughter, I think, or somebody called and said, my granddaughter is not making it away, she's homesick, what if she comes home?
If it's in their first year.
If it's still in the first year? Okay,
And second year as well.
they come back home?
Has to do with the starting point, but I think that would qualify.
Okay. But yeah, overall, a good presentation, thank
They
you.
also had one question about Ken. They thought maybe, they
Yeah, we
wondered,
did.
did he fall asleep in his chair or something?
Tulare
Somebody
is
there
kind of a
thought
small
maybe-
town, everybody
maybe
knew you were missing.
Nodded off in your chair and couldn't come down.
Let's see, that was a Thursday. There was probably a basketball game somewhere.
They were concerned about you. I said, well, he was here last year. He only comes every other year.
Okay, well, that's my report, I guess. Mr. Lane, thank you for that information regarding that board. I did see an email on that, and I kind of had intentions of attending, but it didn't work out, so I'm glad you picked up all the information for us. All right, we'll move on to foundation report, and Mr. Foster is here with us today.
Hello. I do have a little date card for you to help keep track of a busy April for us at the COS Foundation. This is by no means an exhaustive list of all the things that COS events that are happening, but these are some of the ones that I'm involved with. The one I want to call attention first off is that men's basketball. We made the Elite Eight, and so hopefully folks can make that. I don't know if I was stealing Brent's thunder on that, but
A little bit.
oh, sorry. Okay. It was a great game, by the way.
You can't help it.
Let's see. So the ones that I did, that I'm doing, the April CSF celebrations. So this is the celebration that the COS Foundation organizes on behalf of the College of Sequoias. And these are 3 luncheons that we put on, one in Visalia, Tulare, and Hanford, where we have locations. And so it's celebrating those high school students that have achieved a lifetime membership into the California Scholarship Federation. We've been doing these luncheons now since 2014. And so the Tulare one is on April 14th at 12 p.m. at the Veterans Memorial Building. The Hanford CSF celebration is April 21st at 12 p.m. at the Hanford Civic Auditorium. And the Visalia CSF celebration is April 28th, 12 p.m. Visalia Convention Center. Slight fluctuations in the levels of CSF students that are being awarded this year or recognized this year, but a slight uptick. So that's always good, and we like to report to the superintendent all of the different schools that and their respective numbers, so they have that data for themselves to do whatever. So we have a great time. We make it sustainable by securing sponsors. We're only trying to keep it sustainable. We're not trying to make a buck on this thing. This is a community event that we're hosting that we try to keep sustainable. So we get some sponsors, and we sell tickets to the parents and other community members that want to attend. The students and the advisors and do not pay. They're our guests. Also, just to let you know that the COS Athletics President's Cup is held in April. April 24th to be exact, on Friday. It starts about 11 o'clock and finishes about 5 o'clock. We also have an Alumni Drive that now coincides with that, and so that's an opportunity for predominantly sports alumni, but anyone can contribute as a booster or just a supporter of COS Athletics. but it's a drive to get alumni engaged that wouldn't necessarily be able to make it to the golf tournament or just simply don't play golf. They can contribute to the COS athletics program. And we have a goal of 5,000. We have just recently attained that goal, and we're still got plenty of people being invited to participate. So that's looking very positive. Also, in terms of the teams, we need 24 to fill the thing out, and we have 22 firm commitments, and we have several others that are waiting to communicate to us whether they're in or not. So someone's going to be shut out of this thing. I'm not sure who, but that's a good problem for us to have at this point in the game.
We've also got 2 board members playing, so maybe we should have a little public wager.
Ooh, yeah.
Friendly wager.
Friendly.
We don't do
We'll figure that out.
Just their scores.
Isn't
Which is hard to
the,
Sherman's been bragging about his golf game.
the $5,000, that's quite a big jump from what it was even last year.
Yeah, last year was in the low fours, 4,200 or something like that. It just keeps incrementally getting larger. We asked just a $50 suggested donation to contribute, and a lot of people send in $100, $200, $300. So it's gaining in both the quantity and the average gift are both increasing.
And that was
which
a
is-
former-
those are metrics that I like.
That was a former athletic director that came up with that idea,
Yeah, yeah,
Branco.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he's been largely the recruiter as well.
Right.
So yes. Well, thank you, Trustee Sherman, for being on the committee to help organize this event and obviously playing in it and sponsoring it. And thank you, Trustee Ken, for always being a consistent player in the event as well. And
He's
that's all I
not
have.
consistent.
Well, then maybe I should come.
Every other year, everything's every other year.
All right, any questions for Mr. Foster?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to follow up, if I may, if a celebration is going to be done in Woodlake this year.
No, we lost our partner in that, and so we need to reorganize. Maybe you and I can help we can strategize that. That has been the Rotary Club that helped partner with that to make that happen, and that club has not been in a position where they told us we're not going to be able to help. So we might need to look at other options or maybe revisit with them.
Yeah, I'd like
for
to.
next cycle and give us a year to make it happen.
Yeah, I'd like to connect with you, what it takes, how much is needed, or needs to be fundraised, but if they can have one in Woodlake, maybe they can be invited to Visalia.
Yes, that's a possibility. It's just a question of transportation and time.
And room too. I mean, Visalia is pretty large.
Yeah, we have about 500 guests in the exhibit hall, and we give every student some mic time, and so that's where it gets long otherwise. But we did add a new institution, only with 2 students. But this is the first year that VTech will have a couple of students at the Visalia.
Raymond, I don't know that money is the issue in Woodlake either. It was just a little bit of apathy, and I know they've changed superintendents now. So at one time we got great support from Drew, and then it waned a little bit, and now with Laura there, we may be able to bring it back. And the Rotary did make for a good forum, even if we had to chip in with a few bucks to make it happen. So maybe we can revisit that.
Yeah.
Sure, I'd love to do that. Thank you.
Be happy to.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Lucerna with the accreditation report?
No report.
No report today. Must be good. All right. Next up is Superintendent Calvin's report.
Thank you, President Nunes. I have 3 quick items. First of all, over the next couple of months, we'll be talking about budget quite a bit. And the first thing in April and May that we'll be talking about is some one-time funds that have fallen out of the 18-19 budget. You recall that we were shorted close to $3 million when the year ended last year for 18-19. But even though the year closes, it's not completely over until recalc in February of the following year. And here just a couple of weeks ago, the state notified all districts that between year end closed June 30th and February, a lion's share of the property taxes had come in were the problem. That's why we got shorted what we got shorted at the end of last year. So we are going to get that $2.9 million that we were shorted from last year. And so anytime we have a chunk of one-time funds that large, we like to bring it through our governance structure, take it to our budget committee, our district governance senate, and then to the board. And so we're currently taking it, it's been to the budget committee, it'll go to DGS, it'll come here in April for information, and then it'll come here in May for approval. And just to give you a little sneak preview, I think some of the things that are being kicked around right now are possibly topping off OPEB, other post-employment benefits account. We've talked about that. We saw our actuarial. We know that we slipped down below being 100% funded, so we'll be looking at that.
Yeah, we're probably a lot lower now, too.
We could be. We'll look at capital improvements because there's some work surrounding our basic skills building on the southeast corner of campus that's not covered by the state funding, so we need to set aside some money for that. And then something that comes up time and time again at instructional council and other places is we need a little pot of money for replacement classroom furniture, desks and chairs and things of that nature. We find that division chairs are always having to include those kind of basic necessities in their program review. And so it's our intention to take some of these one-time monies and set up a little fund just for that would help facilities and the academic divisions to replace those on an as-needed basis. So hold tight. April, we'll be bringing a recommendation to close out the 18-19 year with that. The second thing is a coronavirus update. We've sent out staff as well as board as well as student updates on the actions we're taking right now to minimize the risk to our faculty, staff, and students. We've convened a 10-person task force that's meeting actually twice weekly via conference call to work on some of these issues. We have sent out the latest information from the CDC to all of our constituency groups. We have purchased and are installing 60 new hand sanitation stations across all 3 districts, as well as some signage about the importance of good hygiene. We've also purchased 2 misting machines, and we've ordered 20 more that circulate a chlorine-based solution that allows us, it's a safe way to mist down every classroom and high traffic area every night, and then just let it dry overnight. But we've also invested $10,000 in cleaning supplies, primarily for, again, classrooms and high traffic areas. And we're going to be enlisting faculty's help as well as students' help to where when students come into a classroom, they can clean their own desk and chair as they sit down and then as they leave. And so those are the main actions we've taken today. We've also posted on our website these actions as well as links to other things that we could be doing. And we just this morning started our conversations about the possibility of modifying class schedules and or delivery modes. You hear about online and hybrids, and there's just quite a lot of complexity that's built into those decisions. So we're working as quickly as possible, but still being thoughtful about what will work and what won't work. Currently, our faculty DE coordinator, Deborah Nolan, is working with her distance education co-chair, Mary Catherine Oxford, on some recommendations as to how that would look. Would there be a time if Tulare County had quite a number of identified infections and even some on our campuses, how would we handle it? Would we Would we have to close campus for a week or two? Would we sandwich that around a spring break? Would we go to more of a hybrid model where faculty could email out assignments for the week and maybe bring students together, once a week or something like that, or maybe just non-essential classroom time like labs? We're having those conversations right now. They are complex, and we haven't gotten as far as we'd like yet, but trust me, every 48 hours, we have assignments and we're meeting on those items. Dr. Shingle is running that task force, and I sit on it as well as the VPs and several people from our health community. So we're doing our best to stay on top of this coronavirus threat. Any questions there before I move on to my third? Yes, Ray.
You mentioned the possibility of having it to where students and faculty can like clean up their desks before they leave. How would they do that? Would they like set up little like wipes in the classrooms?
Yes,
Or?
we would have a station. We've invested $10,000 in just a bunch of supplies, and we'd have that set up in the back of class. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
John.
Make a comment, and I hesitate to say because I don't want to seem calloused or anything like that, but from a perspective standpoint, let me take a different direction at it. I would hope that in our conversations, and I'm confident it is, but I just want to say out loud, that we're considering all forms of infectious diseases as we put these sort of processes in place. I mean, as you look at, the flus of all strains, costing 61,000 or so people their lives on an annual basis, in the U.S., and you have 20 or fewer deaths from the coronavirus in the U.S. Now, I recognize that if it catches on, then it gets exponential. So I'm not trying to minimize that, but I think we have a responsibility to feed into the calm and the comfort that we are taking the steps to protect everybody and that sort of thing. And I know you are. I'm just sort of saying out loud that there's a lot of hysteria that is affecting and will continue to affect the economy of the world for a long time.
Yep.
And it's concerning to me that it appears to be over-revved. It's not over-revved if you're one of the 20. Totally get that. But we also have to have the right perspective that we're not, blowing it up, or as we would roll out the new processes, particularly to students, and I know that the faculty will do an excellent job of educating that, but to let them know this isn't because we think we've got it, it's just to protect.
We have been very cautious to let people know that this is in an abundance of caution, and that these are the steps that we are taking. Task force, faculty, staff, and administrators, I think we're all taking that approach. We don't want to be caught not prepared.
Yeah.
So we are preparing ourselves for the worst, but we're trying our best not to feed into that hysteria. And I also think that to your first point, there has come a realization that there probably is more that we can be doing as an institution in years to come, even after coronavirus becomes kind of an afterthought. Just the misting the classrooms and things like that, and we certainly wouldn't take down these hand sanitizing stations once this coronavirus blows over, and cleaning our classroom spaces, giving the students the ability to do that. There are some things that I think are good practices, that they're here to stay, and I think it's only through this that we've come to that realization that there's more that we can be doing in that regard.
Sure. Great.
Well, it's a pretty good practice for the flu, too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Any more questions on that? I've got one more, and it's the one that Tim kind of stole my thunder, but our basketball team did travel to Yuba, one of the toughest places to play in the state, and They had an excellent team. They've gone to 7 of the last 13 Elite Eights. And we were a 5 seed, they were a 4 seed. And at halftime, they were up by 21 points.
They meaning Yuba.
Yuba, yeah, they, us and they are they. And they were up by 21 at halftime. And we came roaring back in the second half, tied the game with 3 minutes left, fought back and forth. We made a free throw with 8 seconds left. They came down and missed a shot at the buzzer that would have sent it to overtime. And so we're on our way to the Elite Eight. And so that game will be against Southern California's top team. The top 4 teams from Northern California meet the top 4 teams from Southern California. And so we'll be facing off against Santiago Canyon at 5 o'clock on Friday night. West Hills Lemoore is the host venue. They have a nice arena. They'll be the host venue this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Women play all day Thursday, men on Friday, and then the semifinals on Saturday, finals on Sunday. So if you're not busy, you want to come out, that's at the West Hills Lemoore Arena, 5 o'clock on Friday evening.
And then Saturday and Sunday too, depending on how it goes?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll be playing on
So where do
Saturday
we-
and Sunday.
Where do we follow the, yeah, and do they have a Twitter feed? How will we get the updates? I know it'll be in the paper, but,
It's on, streaming on TV too, right?
It will be
okay.
through CCCAA,
okay.
California Community Colleges Athletic Association, so
Okay.
cccaasports.org, I believe. They do a good job of the live stream. That
I'm
concludes my
curious,
report.
did anybody notice that really tall guy on the second half to come up and take care of that 21 point? You know, kind of the older guy.
No. No, I could probably still make a free throw, but I couldn't guard anybody. Nobody.
Okay, so Brent, thank you and those involved in kind of being proactive with regards to infection, whatever type it may be. I think it's the right thing to do. And I know that our other colleagues throughout the state are in the same, kind of in the same boat, and some may be more affected than others, so I'm sure you could take some guidance, from some of the
Yeah.
other, from some of the other colleagues as well, so. Okay. We will move on to reports. First up, Mr. Turner with Academic Senate.
I'm looking for the sanitizer, though, I don't see it.
It's on order.
Okay, so the Academic Senate had its first officer elections where the Academic Senate itself voted in its officers. In the past, it had been a faculty-wide election, which was lots of fun to try to put together, considering the minimum number of votes that we needed. So it didn't go off without a single hitch. So the first time that we did it, we ended up having a tie for our FEC position. So we were prepared for that, so we reran and we actually got a winner the second time, and I'll announce those in just a second. Okay, so for the next 2 academic years, that's what I'm here to let you know, I am still going to be the Academic Senate President, so you're stuck with me. Juan Arzola will continue as Academic Senate Vice President. Sandra Bergen will continue as Secretary Treasurer. And we have 2 new members to our officers list. Landon Spencer will be our new state delegate, and Eric Armstrong will be the new FEC chair. So he'll be the one that'll be dealing with the sabbaticals and the IIPs that you approve every year.
Great.
Any questions?
Good.
Okay, congratulations, Mr. Turner. I stand by my congratulations. All right, Mr. Hurst is up next. Costa report.
Thank you. Before I start, I didn't hear a mention of the young man who pitched a perfect game for us.
Oh, yeah.
Ben Peterson, I think is his
Yeah.
name. Amazing, right? Good stuff.
Yeah, it is
Got some.
Thank
From
you.
Tulare.
He's a Mustang.
Oh, he's a red.
He's a
Tribe.
Redskin?
He's a tribe.
Well, I am too now, because that's where my kids go, but I was a Mustang. I have to switch over now. He
Thank
played
you.
ball with him and my son are friends. He's a great kid, to
Thanks,
say the
Dave.
least, and a great
That's
pitcher.
great.
Sure, I
Thank
just
you.
thought I'd give a shout out. So I'm up here just to briefly mention an issue that's just slowly, I keep hearing from faculty, is kind of starting to burn under faculty's skin, and I thought maybe it's something that I can express up here, and then the trustees and management can talk about it. I'm excited to hear that the state has planned to backfill us money from last year. And even more importantly, I'm excited that we have a process that we run those monies through our governance structures, and everybody gets a chance to comment and think about what's the right way to handle this sort of stuff. And so many districts, when I go to conferences and talk to other union presidents, so many districts, there's not anywhere like this sense of collaboration. So we're especially fortunate here at COS. Nevertheless, money is always an issue. And so, and Ron, I'm not trying to steal anything from you. You're going to be looking at an above-base budget report a little bit later on. And frankly, that report itself is a testament to the strength of our system and our commitment to transparency. So there's nothing about that report that I'm particularly upset about, but I did want you guys to think about it for a little bit as you look at it. The budget for the above-base budget allocations was set at $200,000, and the budget committee allocated slightly more than that, and I think that's great. But I noticed when this was presented to us at District Governance Senate that just when you look at the stuff that wasn't funded right up front, I know it goes to the foundation after the budget committee, but you'll notice that there's a ranking, a number 19 rank, which didn't make the cut, for funds to upgrade a foods lab to meet current health and safety issues and enhance the learning environment. And interestingly enough, and we talked about this briefly, it received a lower rank than a new modern espresso machine. And that struck me as kind of odd. First of all, that health and safety is less than a new espresso machine, but that's not, necessary. I don't know, maybe the old espresso machine is about to blow, so, whatever. More importantly, I was kind of struck by the notion that we don't have, $25,000 anywhere in the budget to fund these health and safety issues. Now, here's the thing. I'm not, again, questioning our processes. Our budget committee is a really good one. I trust and respect everybody on it, and so I'm not suggesting that we need to change all our processes. But the thing is, we actually do have the money for some of these things. And the key takeaway when I read these reports is that there seems to be some reluctance to admit that the district has some money. Faculty come to me repeatedly wondering why they have to beg for tiny amounts of money to provide finger food for a professional development activity or an accreditation activity was the last one that I heard about. And then even sometimes we write up detailed proposals, we get them approved, and then we have faculty who chair these professional development committees find themselves having to argue with their dean once more to prove that the budget they've set up needs to be approved again. So, we are, because of our processes, actually the strength of our processes is that they are transparent, and we all see these budget numbers and we know what the reserve is. We also know that this money amassed in the reserve is entrusted to the district to provide the training and resources and educational experience for students. That's what's you're empowered to handle for the community. And so we actually greatly appreciate the strength of the district's finances. Don't get me wrong about that. We there were years we struggled for solvency. Those of you who were here know, and we don't struggle for that anymore, and that's a good thing. However, somewhere between opening a vein and bleeding out and picking in a miserly fashion through every little expenditure, maybe there's a balance that better serves the broader mission of the district without harming us, right? So I'm just asking everybody, as they're setting priorities and thinking management-wise, to consider ways of handling the budget to allow for some more flexibility, and especially so that we keep from hearing that there's no money for anything anymore, because we can actually see that there is some. So anyway, that's all I wanted to bring up. Thank you very much
Okay,
for your time.
Mr. Hurst, thank you very much for your comments. I think your points are well taken, and I have a feeling maybe Mr. Calvin might have a thing or two to say about that.
He stole some of my
under-
thunder too.
Under
That's the
information.
theme of the night, but,
Under information items,
yeah,
so.
under number 1, I'll get to some of that. Thank you.
Okay, well, good. All right, so, Mr. Terry, here he comes.
Just a quick report today. Just wanted to let the board know that this Wednesday, March 11th at 2 o'clock, our PACE group, which is the Professional Association of Classified Employees, will be sponsoring our service awards. And this year we are celebrating a combined 305 years of service with a couple of 25-year awards and one 30-year award given out. So we would like to invite you to come if you are so free and would like to. We'll be over here in Sequoia 1. Yeah, that's it. Any questions?
Give me that date again?
This Wednesday,
This Wednesday.
March 11th at 2 o'clock.
That's after my golf game, so I might be available.
He'll be in a bad mood.
It's right during.
Do you have anything I can steal your thunder on before?
No, thank you, Nick. Hey, thank you for respecting my thunder.
You know I'm sorry.
Okay, COSAFA, Dr. Erickson? No report today. Thank you for being here. All right, we are moving on to item 7, information. Item 1, above base resource allocations, 1920.
Thank you, President Nunes, and thank you, Mr. Hurst, for just that segue. This process follows our integrated planning model, and we typically budget $200,000 for the initial ranking. And what you have before you is that ranking. Let's see, funded $211,000, almost $212,000 down through number 16, I believe. And then 17 through 33 go a couple different places. They do go to the foundation. The foundation will be able to take consideration of those items along with requests that come directly to the foundation board that maybe weren't included in program review, and divisions and programs just go straight to the foundation. But we structure it so the foundation gives these folks, 17 through 33, another bite at the apple. In the resource allocation manual, the COS 2.0 manual, we have also the ability when one-time funds come in for us to make a proposal, take it through the budget committee, take it through district governance senate, and then bring it to the board. I think that was originally written with maybe some other processes in mind. The one that comes to mind is the old process of mandated costs. You remember at one time, the state wouldn't reimburse us for mandated costs for years at a time, like 8 or 10 years at a time. And all of a sudden, we just get this big chunk of money that we had been not even really counting on. And so we needed a process for what handling that, and we didn't just want to say it's handled specifically by senior management or the superintendent to the board. We wanted to bring it through the governance structure, so we did that with the mandated costs. You'll recall that's when we We remodeled the pool with some of that and some other different improvements. So we've done the same thing with this money that came in after the fact. It was money that was shorted in the 18-19 year. In April, we'll be bringing back a list of things. And then we'll probably end up having to do the same thing for our 19-20 budget. In one of those two, it'll be our recommendation to come back and fund most of what we have in 17 through 33, with the possible exception of
19?
No, 17. 17.
yeah, we're gonna offer 2 of number 17 instead of number 19. No, 19 I believe will be funded. But it is our intention to come back and pick up most, if not all of these, depending on what Foundation does and depending on whether or not some of these could already be on a priority list through facilities. And so I'd want to tread a little lightly to make sure that if they're already on, if there are facilities projects on a master list, and then these are new coming onto the list, I don't want to speak for Byron, because we do try to keep a list of ongoing facilities projects that get done every summer and every winter break. So at any rate, we will be bringing back to the board recommendations for what to do with one-time funds from 18-19, what to do with funds from 19-20 in the April and May, and then in the case of 19-20, May and June board meetings. Fair enough? Okay, but for the time being, we have approved the almost $212,000 in above base funding, with more to come on the remainder. Thank you.
Okay, good report. And any questions for Mr. Calvin on that? Okay, so we are moving on to the next item, which is the report on 2019 evaluation of institutional program review. And Dr. Trimble has already made her way to the podium, and it's nice to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here for my last board report. It's a little happy dance here. Yeah, as you know, we come and give a report every year about the status of program review to give the board an update on where we are and how the process is working. So we always start with, these were the recommendations that we had to ourselves to accomplish last year. So this was basically the last slide I showed you last year. So these were the things we wanted to do, complete. We wanted to create a new training module for data. We wanted to update our website. Nick's been real instrumental in getting that done for us. We wanted to develop a poster session highlighting examples of what's a good program review. And we wanted to modify our audit instrument, the questions we asked. And we wanted to start promoting equity in our trainings for the units. And we were able to basically complete all of those initiatives last year. We did complete the training module for data. We have updated the website. It's ongoing right now because we have not switched over our website to the new website, so we're still on the old one. So we're going to hold off doing some of it so we don't have to do it twice. So those are some of the things that are accessible through our website. So all of the archive program reviews are up, and so they can look back 5 years, just go back and take a look what they had before last year. All of our training modules can be accessed, the PowerPoints and the narratives, our training manual, and also the link to Tableau so they can go and get data, so they don't have to go into their program reviews, they can just get it from our website. We did present a poster session during convocation at the entrance to the theater. We modified our audit instrument slightly to, in one thing, to do the last part, which is to emphasize the disaggregated data. So we're trying to see whether or not we can get units to start utilizing the disaggregated data during their program review process. One of the things we do is when we're assessing our program review, we take it from a couple of different perspectives. One of the things we do is we have the Office of Institutional Planning, Research Planning, and Institutional Effectiveness conduct a district-wide survey for us. Program reviews are due October 15th. So after October 15th, when it's completed, this survey goes out to everyone. And it's basically asking them what they thought about the process. We had 152 responses this last year. The percentage breakdown, 11% were administrators, 38 full-time faculty, 20% adjunct, and 29% classified. And this is pretty close to what it was the year before as well.
Thea, can I interrupt?
Sure.
On those percentages, what would you say would be the number of people involved that you would expect them to respond? Or is that, does that match
That's
the
a
people that are
fairly
involved?
good cross-section, actually.
Okay.
And interestingly, one of the things that happens is people respond to this even if they're not necessarily directly involved in program review, but it goes out to everyone. And the way the survey works is depending on some of their answers at the beginning, they'll be directed to different questions.
Yeah, okay.
So this is showing you a comparison of the last 2 years. So the first one is program review process was easy to follow. We were thrilled last year at 84%. Yay, we got better. So people are finding it easier, so we're pretty pleased with how well our training is going. The next one did improve, although it's the lowest of all of the survey findings, and that's that the program review process required little effort to complete. We're not really upset about this because the whole point is for them to spend some time really thinking about their program and where they want to go and how to make it better. So that's
It's a
okay.
loaded question.
Yeah, it's okay. We were really thrilled last year that 94% of the people who were surveyed thought that it was beneficial. The entire process was beneficial. It dropped down a little bit this year, but overall, still, we're really pleased with that, considering for some of you who've been around, know where we came from, where program review was the least favorite thing on campus. So we're still pretty happy with this. We also have the people look at the different areas of program review because some things they find easier to do than others. And so this is how, percent easy and very easy, the strength and weaknesses. This is where they're talking about their overall program and what they see as their strengths and what they see as their weaknesses. And again, pretty high and an improvement. Our outcomes and assessment has historically been the hardest one for the people to complete, especially in the academic areas, because people use TrackDat to do their outcomes and assessment, and so they keep thinking, well, I've done it, and it's in TrackDat, but this is a different form of TrackDat, and so they struggle with this quite a bit. Actions are pretty high. People pretty much know what they want to do. That's good. Resource allocations, again, the resource requests tend to be a pretty big focus because if you want to get on the list to get funded, it needs to be in your program review. So a fair amount of effort is spent on that. Also pretty pleased that people are looking at the updates. How are we doing? Let's go back and look at our actions and how are we doing? And they're finding that that's relatively easy to do and they're doing it, which is good. All of these improved year over year from 2018 to 2019. So again, we take that our changes to our training and how we're approaching training people is working. This is also an improvement, which is nice. If you had more than one person in your unit, how is the program review workload distributed? It's becoming fairer. More people are thinking it's fairly distributed. And I think as people get more accustomed to the program, it's a little bit easier to understand how you can divide up the workload, and that's a benefit to everybody. This is new because last year we developed, we call it the SWAY, but it's basically a quick guide. Our manual was about 25 pages in length, and this is just a couple of pages. So it's kind of hitting the highlights. If you have a question about a particular area, you can go. And people found that it was either very helpful or somewhat helpful. So for the first year out, we thought that was pretty good. Thank you, Nick. we do trainings both in the spring and the fall, although we find our fall tends to be better attended because that's closer to the due date. And we offer training sessions on all campuses. We hold our training sessions in computer labs so the people can actually be working on their program reviews and ask us questions, and we can help them as they're doing their program reviews. According to the survey, 83% of the respondents thought there was enough sessions. 87% found that we covered all the aspects we needed to, but only 38% of them actually went.
Isn't that typical of?
Yes, it is. So, again, they're.
I like it. I do.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty typical. The next type of research we do about our process, we call the audit. And this is where the actual Institutional Program Review Committee audits the program reviews of the units. And so there's 99 program review units throughout the district, and we as members of the committee audit each of those, and the audit is administered by Office of Research Planning and Institutional Effectiveness. So they send us out links with the questions and access to the program reviews. And then we have a rubric that we use to go through and audit. It is available to everyone. That is, it's in our program review manual, and we also give it to the deans when they're being trained on the program review process. And it basically consists of a series of questions where we ask ourselves, did they do what we told them to do? Basically. So if we, each unit gets audited by one of the members. If we do all the units, we don't double up because it's a lot. So each unit only gets one person looking at it. And now we're looking at how well the process is working for the people. So are they understanding well enough that the program reviews are including what we would hope they would? So one of the things we look at is in their strengths and weaknesses, we ask them to address these things: academic quality, student success, resource efficiency, and internal and external relations. And so as we audit it, we just ask ourselves, if we read through this, did they address these? So you'll see that student success is pretty high, and internal and external relationships is pretty high. The non-applicable, there's places where it doesn't apply. So things like the Office of Finance isn't going to really talk about student success because it's not in something they're going to be working with. And you'll see that basically this gives you a little bit of a snapshot of what the units think are important to discuss. So they're discussing a lot of student success and internal and external relationships, a little bit of resource efficiency, not quite as much of academic quality. But academic quality and student success are at least somewhat related. So it's a little bit, they have a little bit of crossover there. The next thing we wanted to look at is the data usage. And do the units analyze quantitative or qualitative data to support their claims in their discussion of their strengths? So if we say we're good, do we back it up with data? And we found that 86% of all the units did that. And this is an increase over last year. Last year was about 76%, so it's up about 10% year over year, so also good. We also looked at data if they were saying that they needed improvements. So did they use data in their discussions of where they needed to improve? And here again, 79% we saw that they did use data. This is only a slight increase over last year. It was about 73% last year. And do the units use data effectively and interpret it to support their claims or their conclusions? It was at 93% this year. This was quite a bit of an increase. It was up, last year it was only 81%. So we are finding in our audits that the units are being more and more comfortable with the use of data in more and more different areas. The last one we did is a brand new question because it went along with our change in focus plus the idea that they now have access to disaggregated data. And so we wanted to ask whether or not the units actually used any disaggregated data in their program review in any section. So it wasn't particular. And at this point, we found that about 43% of the units did. And again, those would be academic units and some student services units. Units in admin services, they're not going to really be looking at disaggregated data. So that's why we have the not applicable. So for our first time out, pretty good. And again, it's we don't have any year-over-year data because we've only had Tableau for 2 years. So this is the first time, this is one of the changes we made to our audit so that we could start keeping track of whether or not they're looking at the disaggregated data, which again goes back to our equity lens. Are they thinking about these things in terms of equity? Going forward for this year, we have a number of plans. We're in the process of reorganizing our committee and creating subcommittees that will be responsible for particular duties. So we're going to have a data subcommittee, a communication subcommittee, web page, things like that, so that it's a little bit easier to get some specialty. You can kind of dive in. I'm on the data committee. Into particular things to get stuff done. We're going to continue to work on our website, especially as we transition over from the old web pages to the new web pages. We, as a part of our processes every year, consult with IPEC, Institutional Planning and Effectiveness Committee, and the Budget Committee, because all our processes are interrelated. And sometimes if we're not careful when we make changes that make really a lot of sense to us, it actually messes up the other committees. So we have a joint meeting, we just had that last week, where we talk about any changes we might be planning on and discuss possible unforeseen ramifications and other things that people have noticed. So one of the issues that we have is that trying to make TrackDat easier, and yet Budget Committee requires that they be able to get information out of the program reviews to do their reviews for the budget allocations. So it's important that when we make those changes, we don't make them to the point where Budget can't pull the reports they need. And right now we still have some trouble that the reports get ridiculously long and they're pulling data that they don't need. So we're trying to find a way to clean that up so that they can more easily access the parts of program review that they need to get to. We're going to be, as a part of that, we'll be seeing if we can make some changes to our TrackDat shells. We'll have to work with Nuventive, is that right? In order to do that. Once those are done, then we have to modify the quick guide in the instruction manual to reflect any of those changes. And we're going to continue to promote our equity lens. So we're going to continue to try and get that percentage of use of disaggregated data up.
So I opened up a few of the, not all 99,
Yeah.
handful. And I'm not saying this is happening, but is it a process that becomes kind of redundant where you go in and working on that, or does it start out kind of with a clean slate? Like if new people come in or the same people stay in, does it become, oh, I've done this before?
Right.
Check
A lot
the box
depends on
and-
the unit, and a lot depends on the size of the unit, how they do their program review. And one of the issues that we're looking at now is, right now it isn't a clean slate. So when they go in this next year to do their program review, all their program reviews are there. Now we tell them to create a new one for this year, and then they can copy paste. Sometimes though, they didn't get that message and they just, in the wrong year, they just go in and edit it. So one of the things we found is that when Dolly's group prints them out to archive them, there's like nothing there. So we're looking at the possibility of making it a clean slate, because they always have access to the archives. And that way, it will be brand new each time. I mean, the downside is it's brand new and they can't just change a few data points. But that may not be bad. It makes them think about it again. Just because we spent 3 paragraphs talking about this particular set of disaggregated data doesn't mean you have to talk about that set every year.
Yeah,
think
and
about what's important for that year.
And I think what I thought about was even just if someone new comes in, for it to be a new set of eyes looking at it in order to make it more effective instead of just doing what someone did the year before.
Right, and we frequently in our trainings will get someone that's new to being the person that has to enter it. And a lot of times they're new hires, and it's like, I don't understand what they were doing, and I said, feel free to ignore what they said and start all over
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
because that happens sometimes. And so if it goes to a clean slate, then everybody will be in that position of having to think about, okay, really now, how many of these actions do we want to carry forward? How many do we need to carry forward versus do we need to start something else?
So in your larger divisions, how many people are involved in program
A
review?
lot depends on how they do it. In my division, our departments, so we have 7, math, chemistry has 5. We basically sit down, we call a meeting, and we sit down and we have somebody up front, and everybody's got the program review early, and they've got the data set early, and then we just talk and they type. As we say, okay, we want to change this to that, say this, they say that. Chemistry does it
But
the same
everybody's
way.
in the room.
Right.
Okay.
Sometimes what happens, especially I think in larger areas where you can't find a time that everybody can get together, they send it out. They send it out, make your edits, send it back. So that's another way. The worst way is it's your job, you do it.
Yes.
We don't care. And
Just
I'm
get it
sure
done.
that probably happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the worst way
Okay.
to do it.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you for
Okay.
that. Before you leave,
Can I-
so does that mean the last slide will be the first one that we will see next year?
That would be correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
Dr. Trimble, excellent report. Thank you for that. When you were talking about the audits and showing that great data, this may be a question for you, but possibly Dr. Ozturk. Is that the kind of thing that we'll see in our annual report on the master plan for whichever one of our strategic objectives?
I've already submitted my part of that to the annual plan. Yes.
That's really rich
Yep.
data, so thank
Yeah.
you. And then the other thing is, at the risk of having something thrown at me, this is your last board report because
Yes.
it's your last year before retirement. And we can't
That's nice.
pass up the opportunity to thank you for your decades of service here to the College of the Sequoias. This report last night was a good example of the kind of work that Dr. Trimble has done for this district for several decades now, not only with program review, but in her own department and division, with the Academic Senate, and certainly it's been well documented for accreditation. We would not have made it out of show cause, I'm convinced, without Dr. Trimble's guidance and assistance. She was the only one at that time that had been on site visits, and she'd done multiple site visits. So, Dr. Trimble, on behalf of the board, me personally, and everybody in this room and on this campus, congratulations on a
Thank you.
fabulous career, and
Thank you.
appreciate all your efforts.
I appreciate that.
And I have one last question of Thea.
Hopefully it's don't be a stranger. Don't be a
Bring her
stranger.
back.
Well, I'm thinking back on our car ride that one time, and we had some really good conversations, and I remember this being a piece of one of those conversations of somewhat frustration, but how can we make it better? Looking back at that time when we talked about specifically program review, is this looking back to the point we were at and where you've come, would you say this is the outcome is what you would have liked? More or less?
Oh, more.
More, okay.
Yeah, this is better than I could have hoped for.
Yay.
From where we came from. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, because you had such a vision of how you could make it better. I was hoping that what you envisioned and what happened was able, because things move slow through
Right,
processes, right?
Well, the fact that over 80% of the units think it's valuable is huge.
Okay.
It's huge. I mean, before it was like,
Yes.
we used to joke we would walk around with targets on our backs because we
Yes.
were on that committee. And it wasn't far off. People were really
And it wasn't
unhappy,
being
they
used.
didn't like it, it was too much. This is much better. Plus, it's clearer how it feeds into our process.
Yes, okay.
And before it wasn't as clear.
Thank you for that. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Thanks. And thank you for all you did to make it happen.
Thanks.
All right, great. Consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any member of the Board of Trustees or any person in the audience and considered as a separate agenda item. So we have, our consent calendar for today consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 items. Are there any items that need to be pulled and acted on separately today?
I'd like to pull item 8.
Item 8 is pulled from the consent calendar. Any others? None? And if not, then I would accept a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion for approval of consent, of the consent calendar, other than the item 8. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, item 8, Mr. Sherman.
It's just more of a question. I see for the physical therapy program, we're using the facility in Porterville. Do the students have to go there, or?
Just stand up. Actually, one of the things that we're needing to do is get more acute care experiences. And so our students are asking us to have more facilities other than just Kalia Delta. And with Tulare District closing, that really hurt the acute care experience that they had. And so some of the better paying jobs are at hospitals versus outpatient clinics. And so it was kind of driven by our students, but also by our outside accreditation, that we need to have a balance between inpatient and outpatient. So, and we have about 20% of our students who are from the Porterville, Orosi, Lindsay, Strathmore area. So for some of our students, we send them kind of back home
Okay.
to get that clinical. We always try to have their last clinical placement closest to their zip code where they live.
Okay, good. I knew you'd have the answer, so. I move we approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Raymond second for approval of consent calendar item 8. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Just a question for Dr. Shingle, if I could. So you mentioned Tulare. Is Tulare kind of off the radar at this point? And is there a possibility that they would?
We have several outpatient clinics there, Pro PT, some of the schools. So we still have clinics in that area, but the hospital does not have the volume of inpatient physical therapy patients for us to.
Correct.
But we're working closely with them. I meet with a dentist closely about once a month just to kind of keep up on that. As soon as they open the doors back to us, we'll be there.
All right, great.
Our contract is still in place.
Thank you. Okay. Starting with action item number 9, curriculum. Dr. Lacerna.
Good evening, everyone. We have the curriculum report in front of you that was approved by the Academic Senate and the Curriculum Committee, and we're requesting the board approve that as well. And I'll just run through it with you really quick. On page 1, we have 4 new courses in fine arts, fire, and work experience. Page 2, 1 new course in work experience. And then we have, beginning the rest of page 2, our course modifications. So these are all here for their regular 5-year review in agriculture and art. On page 3, also, all these courses are here for 5-year review in art. Page 4, all courses 5-year review in art and biology and astronomy and child and chemistry, business. Same on page 5, everything 5-year review. Course modifications. This is our big report because this is the last chance to get into the catalog for next year. And then also on page 6, these are additional 5-year review courses. Page 7, all here for 5-year review in history, human services, journalism. Page 8, 5-year review, music and OH. Page 9, 5-year review, all course modifications in OH. Same, let's see, page 10 is also 5-year reviews in paralegal, advanced science, psych, soc, and Spanish. And then the next page, on page 11, are our course deletions. So we have 5 course deletions, courses that are either no longer being offered or no longer required or needed or never been offered. Bottom of page 11 is new programs. We have a new skills certificate in fashion design and a new certificate of achievement in veterinary assisting. And just to be clear, it's not our vet tech program, it's veterinary assisting, it's a certificate.
Correct.
And that was with our new faculty member you met last year. She is a veterinarian, and based on all of her work and the research she's been doing, this is what we're recommending at this time. It's a certificate in veterinary assisting, not vet tech. And then following that is program modifications. These are just regular 5-year reviews or 2-year reviews for programs. And the same on page 13, just the regular 2-year reviews for our career technical education programs. So now that was a lot of courses. It's our big packet. Any questions? Yeah.
Is for the orientation in college success, is there something that replaces it or an alternative?
So we were, when we were doing orientation, the orientation program for students, they do several steps to complete orientation. They were taking a class basically, and they would get credit for it. We learned through several processes that we don't need to register them for a class. It was an additional half unit they were having to pay and having to take, and if they don't have to do it, they're still going through the same processes. They just don't have to enroll in the class anymore. So starting in fall, we've determined we no longer need them to enroll in the class, but same process that they'll be going through.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the curriculum report for the month of March. If no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, next item, item 10, annual board priorities, second read. And Mr. Calvin, I believe we had some questions on this last time, or some
We did.
modifications.
I'll direct your attention to item number 7. We reworked the language on that. Trustee Macareno took copious notes and helped me with the wording here. And we have continued to foster partnership to build a transfer pathway from College of the Sequoias to California State University, Fresno. So it's not exclusively about the South Valley campus, but it includes all transfers to Fresno State. And there's several different actions that we'll use to accomplish that, but that captures the board priority for the year, which is really focusing in on the transfer pathway from here to Fresno State.
Okay, so.
We approve.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for the approval of the board priorities. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, so now we are moving on to item 11, and Mr. Bratch is coming forward regarding presentation of reopener bargaining proposals from the district and Costa first.
Yes, I have the next 3 items, and essentially they're all the same. We're beginning to start the negotiation season, and the first part of that negotiation season is to sunshine our proposals. Yeah. My favorite time of year, March Madness season.
Not like the flu season.
That's quite all right.
One word started it all.
Again, the first part of negotiations is for both parties to sunshine their initial collective bargaining proposals. And I'll start off with Costa and the district. Attached to your board agenda item are the respective reopen or collective bargaining proposals from both Costa and the district. I would ask that the board acknowledge receipt of these collective bargaining proposals. And I'd also like to point out that they will be available for review to the public at the Office of Human Resources Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, as well as being posted on, well, I don't know if they'll be posted or not because, well, they are posted right now. And I also like the board to acknowledge that there will be a board hearing at the April 13th board meeting in which the public will have the opportunity to comment on either one of these reopen or collective bargaining proposals.
Can
So
we approve all three of them in one motion?
Yes,
Let's,
I'm in
on the
hesitation.
kind of hearing, let's just do them individually.
Okay.
Okay.
So at this
Okay.
time, I'd ask the board to acknowledge receipt of the
Okay,
Costa
so,
districts.
yeah, I was thinking the public hearing's not till next meeting.
Correct.
Okay, so I would accept a motion to acknowledge receipt of the proposals from District and Costa.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to acknowledge receipt of the reopening bargaining proposals, District and College of the Sequoias Teacher Association, Costa. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. I wasn't going to oppose, I don't. All right, so item 12.
We're on to CSEA, and with CSEA, our master agreement actually expires in the end of June of 2020, so the entire contract is open. And both sides do wish to open negotiations, and both sides have presented their initial successor collective bargaining proposals. I'd ask that the board acknowledge receipt of these. And with that, I'll leave.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to acknowledge receipt of the initial successor collective bargaining proposals with the district and CSEA. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Could I just ask a clarifying question? It's very minor, but on Article 8, 8.7, I'm not sure, is there something hanging on after the 130? Modify current language to reflect a 6-month or 130 probationary period?
I'm assuming this should be days.
Days.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's what they're looking for.
Okay, Mr. Bretsch.
And finally, item number 13, we're in year number 2 of a 3-year contract with the Adjunct Faculty Association, and both sides wish to reopen negotiations this spring. In your packet, you have the district's reopener proposal, but unfortunately, CASAFAS did not make it to the agenda on time, but we do have copies up here for the public to review. But I should point out that this year, we were limited in what we could open up. In fact, the contract was very specific about what we could open up for negotiations this spring. So even though CASAFAS was not included in the board packet, nevertheless, the district is opening up the items that are discretionary. And so we'll have an opportunity to review all those items. With that being said, I'd ask that the board acknowledge receipt of the district's initial reopen collective bargaining proposal, and also announce that the CASAFAS is up here for review if need be.
Does that delay the process at all if we don't acknowledge receipt of that?
I don't think so. Realistically, we're not going to start getting to the table probably until after the May revise, the end of May. So if we want to be ultra cautious, I could put CASAFA's reopener proposal on next month's calendar, and we can hold the board hearing at the May board meeting. It's up to the board as to how we want to proceed with CASAFAS.
What you have attached here from COSAFA is not their proposal?
It is their proposal, but it wasn't submitted in time to be put on the actual board agenda.
Oh,
when
I
Megan
see what,
sent
you-
it
okay,
out.
I got it. So, whatever the board's wishes are, I don't have a problem in delaying it, just to be technically correct, I guess. Is that okay?
The reason it was delayed, if you're interested, is because the executive board doesn't meet until Friday. So we were meeting at the Tulare campus on Friday, it was approved, it was written already, and it was just, we had to go through all the process. But we had intended for it to be.
It doesn't sound like it's gonna hold anything up, so I think we just do what you said, John.
Do it
Recommend.
April, go April, May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
We
you.
approve.
We're just gonna table this until.
Oh, we're gonna table it?
Yeah,
Okay.
right? Or
I
not?
thought he said to approve that we got our part.
Oh,
but
so
I
we're
guess it
okay
doesn't
with
matter.
going?
We'll approve just ours, but we'll take theirs
Approve
next
ours,
month,
I understand.
right?
Okay, now
Is that
I'm
what you
with you.
said? Is that, did I hear you
That's,
correct?
yes.
Okay,
Okay. So Greg made a motion to that effect?
second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to acknowledge the district's proposal with regards to the COSAFA contract. If no further questions, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, thank you for that. And I believe that Mr. Woods has been here listening to every word that's been spoken, and now it's his turn.
Did you and Ron?
How old are
plan
those
this?
seats?
What's that?
Did you and Ron plan
Those
this?
are the same seats I sat in it.
They don't
Twins.
know.
I think they are.
Yeah, kind of.
Put your magnet
I
on
doubt
your
it.
lapel, so you guys will really be.
I sat in those back in the 70s.
All right, well, the district is requesting the purchase of new seating for the Ponderosa Lecture Hall as well as Sawtooth 326, which is the music lecture hall, not the big theater. So the existing seating is, I don't even know how old it is. It's
We're
very
wondering, we
outdated.
wanna know if we sat in them.
Oh, for sure.
Possibly,
Yeah,
but
I'm
it's,
thinking
they're
they still,
plastic
they
seats.
sound the same when I'm in there.
And they are,
They
they're a
feel the
maintenance
same.
nightmare. So we're looking at upgrading them, nice fabric seats, something much more comfortable for students. So attached, you will find a quote from Sierra School Equipment Company out of Bakersfield at a price of $133,386. I noticed that on the agenda, the actual item description itself, the number's incorrect. I think it says 102,000. But the actual cost is 133,386 as shown. They are referencing a piggyback contract, master purchase agreement between Arvin Union School District, which is also attached for reference if needed. They've used this before with many K-12 and community colleges. So, funding, we have 2018, 2019 one-time funds. There was a $140,000 allocation for seating and acoustical upgrades in the Ponderosa building. We're looking at replacing the seating actually during the summer, and it will be done before the fall, no problem. So we're seeking authorization by the board to execute the piggyback contract purchase of the attached quote with Sierra School Equipment Company for $133,386. Any questions?
Questions? Comments?
So moved, great.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Before, I just got to tell you how goofy I am. Today, I was looking at this agenda item, and I went to print the description, and, I was looking at I was looking at which, and so I hit print, of course, and so I went and picked up what I thought, and picked up this page, and there's still stuff coming out of that. And I asked, anybody print a big report? And nobody, it was me. 413 pages, so I hope they don't charge me 10 cents. So needless to say, I didn't read it.
You were at work?
I didn't read it all, but I was at work, yeah. So, all right, so we have a motion and a second for the approval of the Ponderosa Lecture Hall seating replacement for an amount that's different than what is shown on the actual agenda.
But it was accurate in the backup that was posted.
Yes.
It was, yes. So, with no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Mr. Woods, thank you, and we'll look forward to checking those out. All right, thank you all for being here. The meeting is adjourned.